address the library board, and before we do that, I would like to read the statement. Community members wishing to address the library board must sign in on the community sign-in form prior to the meeting. When addressing the board, please be sure to state your name, address, and the topic you want to address. Each person is allowed 3 minutes to speak, include after their introduction. Per Wisconsin State Statute 19.8, this is not an opportunity for dialogue between the board and the public. This is a meeting of the Board of Trustees in public for the purpose of conducting the library board's business and is not to be considered a public community meeting. Only this time at the beginning of the meeting is allowed for public participation. Okay. Lydia, I'm sorry, is it Gappa?
Yes.
Can't read the last name. Okay, thank you.
Now when you start talking, then I'll hit you.
All right, I'm ready. Thank you. Hello, my name is Lydia Gappa. I just want to say, in general, I just greatly appreciate the library and the staff. I've spent many hours of my youth here. It's an incredible resource for our community, and you guys have all done a great job for so many years, and I really appreciate the work that you do. I'm mostly here to address some of the comments made by last February's meeting, mostly by the religious leaders that were shared here. And it's just, some of their statements troubled me, and I wanted to just clarify that our identity is not found in who we want to have sex with. It's contradictory to say that our sexuality is a cornerstone of our identity that we're born into, and then in the same breath encourage exploration and fluidity to find out what our sexuality is. Our sexual desires do not define us. They're not our identity and not what should be used to identify other people. And thanks to the saving work of Christ, they have no inescapable stronghold over us. Our feelings and desires can and do change. I've heard many young people say, "How can you tell me to repent of my lifestyle when God made me gay?" But gay is not an identity God made you with. We are all born with desires to do things forbidden by God. These are not identities to cling to, but rather things to be surrendered to Him. God has a very narrow path for sex, and almost everyone I know has fallen off that path. Premarital sex is forbidden, adultery, homosexuality, incest, bestiality. Lust is forbidden. Reminding you of these truths from Scripture doesn't equate to me hating you or anyone who's ever done these things. I also know it's not my responsibility to stop anyone from doing these things. I have sinned sexually. In fact, the majority of people of my life have done at least one, if not many, of these things, and I do not harbor any hate from them. I love them dearly. It would not be loving for me to go around promoting them as good paths to choose from or for young people to walk down, or inescapable identities that we're formed with. That wouldn't be loving to encourage anyone to do something that God tells them not to. Finally, to the rest of you on the issue of censorship, this word was thrown around like confetti last meeting. It seems as if the people presenting had no idea that this library, like all libraries, censor their book collection, or perhaps a kinder word to use is to curate them. Still, the effects are the same. While perhaps libraries truly have a policy to retrieve every book requested of them, they definitely use their discretion on what books to keep, what books to sell, and what books to celebrate and promote. To call into question the wisdom or harm of certain things being promoted, especially to the youth of the community, is not some slippery slope that plunges us into an Orwellian state of existence. I thank you all for your time and for your work in the library. It's a heavy responsibility, and it can be hard to know what to do. I just really appreciate you listening to everyone and for letting me speak today. Thank you.
Pierce.
Brad.
Pierce. Yep.
I'm going to give you all some penmanship, Brad.
Yeah, it was. I got copies for you, because I gotta go fast. Are you ready?
Oh, I'm ready. I gave up
Okay.
seconds leading.
All right. I'm Matt Pierce. I'm here to address the February meeting as well, things in question there. So here we go. Here's a quote from the Library Board Collection Development Policy, Appendix B, the Freedom to Read Statement. Quote, most attempts at suppression rest on a denial of the fundamental premise of democracy, that the ordinary individual, by exercising critical judgment, will select the good and reject the bad. We trust Americans to recognize propaganda and misinformation and to make their own decisions about what they read and believe, end quote. Our republic was built upon a foundational distrust of one sinful fellow man. The checks and balances laid out in our Constitution were established in order to keep the power and wickedness of men limited. Our founders knew that our God in His Word speaks about the inherent wickedness of man. It is a failure on our part as a community, as well as yours as a library board, to point to this document as some sort of proof that the burden is lifted from us to keep the library morally honorable in regard to what books are kept and displayed here. As if Americans are somehow trustworthy enough, simply because they are American, to select the good and reject the bad. No, that is quite wrong. No one is good but God alone, and no one can choose the good apart from His Son, Jesus Christ, who, by the way, is not honored by the content in question here. Others can claim the sin of homosexuality isn't mentioned in the New Testament. It is. Or that it's just an Old Testament issue and is no longer relevant. But Jesus said, quote, "Before Abraham was, I am," end quote. He also said, quote, "Do not think that I have come to abolish the law or the prophets. I have not come to abolish them, but to fulfill them. For truly I say to you, until heaven and earth pass away, not an iota, not a dot, will pass from the law until all is accomplished. Therefore, whoever relaxes one of the least of these commandments and teaches others to do the same will be called least in the kingdom of heaven. But whoever does them and teaches them will be called great in the kingdom of heaven." When Jesus said these things, He spoke of His eternal union in the Godhead. He was there when the laws were handed down because He was the one handing them down. And others may argue about mistranslations, but I would warn anyone against tossing out over 1,900 years of accepted church orthodoxy simply because the cultural winds have shifted a peculiar way in the last 50 to 60 years. The problem everywhere is that man's heart is deceitfully wicked above all things and desperately sick. Who can understand it? The heart of man is inclined to evil. We know this. We live in this world. We all see the effects of sin, and according to Romans 1, we all know God is alive and that He's here. So when God declares something wicked or says it's an abomination, we should listen. We should run from it. We should not base our decisions of whether or not to do such things upon documents that only puff people up to think we have the power within ourselves alone to break the bonds of sin and select the good and reject the bad. American humanism is not the right tool in the tool chest for discernment. The stakes are too high. God has said that homosexuality is sin. Our library should not encourage deceitful hearts already inclined to sin to commit sin by displaying books that are promoting lifestyles which God has condemned. We have a duty to protect this community from partaking in what God abhors. The Lordship of Jesus Christ over heaven and earth is our shared reality. Please act accordingly. Thank you.
Edwin Gappa, possibly?
Calvin,
Sorry.
sorry. The pen wasn't working very well.
We did the best I could.
Yeah, sorry about that. I have sloppy handwriting too, so it's not great. I'm Calvin Gappa. I live over on 709 Edgewood here in town, and all right, I'm ready. My father Gappa spoke correctly when he voiced his concerns using verses from Matthew 18, referencing the millstone tied around one's neck, and I will read further. Woe to the world because of the things that cause people to stumble. Such things must come, but woe to the person through who they come. I want to voice my concerns, one of them being the ALA rules and standards. You say that you hold yourself to these standards that are protecting freedom of ideas, but that isn't true. These rules are a charade that empower librarians to make their choices and then hide behind the ALA as if their wants are law. This way, the librarians are able to promote whatever books and cultural ideas fit their agenda. Books get purchased, sold, and promoted under the steadfast watch of people who have cultural agendas. Purchasing one book for the shelf and not another is censorship just as much as intentionally taking books off the shelf. The librarians put books like Genderqueer on our public library shelves and then also determine how easily accessible they will be. There are books that each one of us would want to keep far from these shelves and far from the people and the community that we love. But it is the agenda of the librarians that we are subject to. The board wants to implement this policy. Selection of materials for a display will not be inhibited by the possibility that materials may inadvertently come into possession or be seen by minors. Does this mean you will allow minors to see all types of media and won't stop minors from obtaining explicit materials? There have always been laws that prohibit distribution of obscene materials to minors. When these laws become more ungodly and wrong, say legalizing sex with minors, do you also start stocking, distributing, and promoting those types of books? Where's the line? In the book Genderqueer, it shows topics depicting how horny the main character is, oral sex, bulge groping, grinding on men, and more. Should this not be kept away from our community and children? It will stimulate impressionable minds, and librarians are responsible, even if one child picks this book up or others like it. I will close with Isaiah 5. Woe unto them that call evil good and good evil, that put darkness for light and light for darkness, that put bitter for sweet and sweet for bitter. Woe unto them that are wise in their own eyes and prudent in their own sight. And for those who have not seen, I did print out some copies from some of the more egregious pages. I'll leave them over on the table if anyone desires to look at them. Thank you for your time.
Dylan Stein.
Good afternoon. Dylan Stein, 814 Summer or 401 East Main. Not what I was expecting to hear today, but okay, I can work with this. All I've heard so far is a bunch of people asking that their religion be given preference over mine or other people's religions, and that's really not the place of a library. In fact, where I come from, a human being claiming that God somehow needs their help in affecting his will would be called blasphemy. But that's not why I'm here. I read the policy in the board packet, and there are some concerns, but basically I really like the direction that it's going, and I wanted to say yes, this is well overdue to have this have a policy, and this one looks like it's headed in the right direction. Though perhaps there should probably be some kind of like ultimate authority, like for example, something in the policies that says, Brett, you have to approve displays, or you or your delegated designee has to give like a final approval on the display to say, hey, yes, these things are acceptable or these things are not, with the reminder that there is policy and then there is procedure, and it's perfectly all right to have a policy that's more blanket and a procedure that is more specific. The procedure being where in the library we have displays and what's eligible for various areas of display and things like that. Reminding the group once again that we have freedom of expression, we don't have freedom from expression. And sometimes we have to do the real life version of just keep scrolling. If there's something you don't like, you don't have to read it. If you don't want your kids to see it, come to the library with them. It's really that easy. But nobody gets to dictate their religion on everyone else. Thank you.
Forsell Gappa.
Thanks. I will hand these in to you guys as well, 'cause I've got footnotes, but I'm not reading footnotes. Every minute counts, all right?
And I'll give you 2 seconds.
All right. All authority in heaven and earth has been given to Jesus Christ. Some people are hardened to this reality. They believe that if people must follow Jesus, they should keep him contained inside the church. They don't want him to interfere with non-Christians making their own decisions. Jesus refuses the limitation. So, number one, as you hammer out a policy for displays, I recommend that you steer clear of embracing the ALA's policies where Jesus' commands are not honored. The ALA exalts mankind's self-rule. Therefore, to build Waupun Library policies and practices upon the ALA standards is to choose people's self-rule over what Jesus commands. This displeases God. But I also believe that the library board cannot blame the ALA for books in the Waupun Library. That would be disingenuous. For your own collection development policy says the final responsibility for material selection lies with the library director. This means Brett Yeager and perhaps Pam Garcia have the final say. The librarians decided when the time arrived to begin putting LGBTQ+ books on the shelf and celebrating Homosexual Pride Month. When the curtain is pulled back, there is no great and terrible Oz speaking. Ultimately, it's just one or two people pulling the levers and turning the dials of their own personal convictions. They are the censors. There's always censorship. It's just a question of who has the final say. It's not the ALA policy, it's local. The Intellectual Freedom Manual, the ALA's Bible to fight against community complaints, tells librarians to, quote, maintain a materials selection policy. Why? Because ALA policies defend a librarian's selection decisions. It becomes a shield for them. It emboldens librarians. Then the Intellectual Freedom Manual encourages librarians to guard all readers and writers from private groups and public authorities. Joseph J. Brannan records, prior to the 1930s, many librarians believed that censorship was one of their professional duties. One early ALA president said, "Books that distinctly commend what is wrong, that teach how to sin and tell how pleasant sin is, sometimes with and sometimes without the added sauce of impropriety, are increasingly popular, tempting the author to imitate them, and publisher to produce, and the bookseller to exploit. Thank heaven they do not tempt the librarian." 3, now we have books like Gender Queer, many without pictures, and coming soon will be books that normalize pedophilia, like Daddy's Little Toy. It exists.
3 minutes.
Okay. The last sentence was golden, so if anyone...
Randy VandeZande. Sorry if I pronounced it wrong.
No, that was good. Yeah, I was just here last meeting because I had constituents write into me regarding this matter. I didn't really have an idea that this was going on. I was kind of taken aback by it, and I was just like, is this really happening in our community here? Nobody is saying censor books, okay? I don't agree with some of the books that were allowed in here. I don't know how they got allowed in here, but nobody is saying censor books. But it was just common sense growing up that people did not put explicit graphic material in the presence of kids where they can attain that. I think that's something that everybody can agree on. I just think that we really are going down a slippery slope with this. There was a guy that used to work for you that was in one of the first meetings that said that he had fun pushing the boundaries. I don't think it's your job to push the boundaries. You're supposed to be here for information purposes, and I don't think you're staying neutral because you're not allowing the same access to other types of social standards and other viewpoints. You're pushing an agenda with that because you don't have the same month for the opposite side of that story. When you have Pride Month, I mean, you should stay away from race, heritage, gender, and all those other things that go in that category, and that would keep you neutral and out of trouble. I just really think that we should keep this material away from children, and when they're that vulnerable at that age, they shouldn't be seeing that stuff. And if nobody has looked at Genderqueer book, you should look at it and see what's in there. So that's all I got. Thank you.
That was the end of the people signed up for public speaking. So we'll continue with monthly statistics.
Can I speak?
What's the board's pleasure? I'm open to allowing you to speak. Anyone else? Yep. Kiehl.
Yep, Jess Kiehl. I live on 331 Bly Street. And currently I am going to be speaking as a public educator because I work for the state of Wisconsin. I am a teacher. Currently I am teaching books to my 10th graders. We are reading Fahrenheit 451 by Ray Bradbury. And that book is taking a look at what society would be like if we banned all types of reading or materials or books. And it's not good. I'm reading it with my students, and we're explaining what inspired Mr. Bradbury to write this book. And it was the book burnings by the Nazis pre-World War II in Germany. And my students, I did not tell them one way or the other what I thought about censorship. My students, they come up to me and they say, Mr. Kiehl, if somebody doesn't like a book, how about they just don't read it? How about they just ignore it? How about they walk the other way? How about they grab a book that they themselves would read instead of forcing other people to not read books because it offends them? And I listened today and I heard people accuse the library of pretty soon bringing in books about pedophilia, or accusing the directors of the library of having some kind of odds or some kind of curtain open, and that's just ludicrous. We are a public building providing public service for everyone in the public. And I know that might be upsetting to some people, but there are gay people in this community. There are religious people in this community, and they all have reason to come to the library. I pulled 3 Bibles off the shelf. It took me a minute and a half. They have access to these books. They can choose to get them if they want. We are not censoring anything. We are not pushing any agenda whatsoever. You can come here and you can get a book. Any book you want. You will see many books on display. You might not agree with all of them. The Bible has been on display before. And if you choose not to read it, just close your mouth and walk past it. Thank you.
Okay, under old business, we have a draft of the library staff display policy to review, discuss, possibly make a motion on. Everybody had a chance to read through it, if anyone has.
Do you want me to start? I wasn't sure how, you notice things like, oh, okay. Since I did put the draft based on public libraries across the U.S., on the first paragraph, starts, the library will strive to, the last sentence, acceptance of a display, blah, 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 that was actually for accepting displays from the public. This wouldn't be for a staff display. So that actually could be deleted. It doesn't make sense if it's going to be a display policy for the library staff, which is really what I think this should be called. So display is the first word. So display policy for library staff. So that could be just deleted. So, because I was pulling this together from policies, like I said, all over the country, all over the state too.
So that would stop at controversial would be the last.
Yes.
Got it.
Mike's just unmuted, so that's fine. Must be back on.
Oh, okay.
I'm going to be checking off here in a couple minutes. Is that going to leave you guys short then?
Nope.
No, we'll be all right.
We're in.
Okay, and the other thing is, I had, came from a staff member. What if we included in this policy, so it would be for the staff display policies, that we will not put any items on the display that include graphic images in picture or drawn format, including nudity and violence.
Can you read that again more slowly, please?
What if we included in the policy that we will not put any items on the displays that include graphic images in picture or drawn format, including nudity and violence?
So that would be a bullet point in that next section, right, under criteria.
Well, then I was going to say, where,
Yeah.
which, yeah, we can do that, and where would we put it?
I actually think it should go in a paragraph that's the second from the bottom that says selection of materials for display will not be inhibited, and ends with materials that are not appropriate for children.
Okay,
I think something should go right after
Put it right
that
at
would
the
make
end.
sense. That makes sense.
Okay, can you read that back slow one more time?
Sure. that we will not put any items on the displays that include graphic images in picture or drawn format, including nudity and violence.
Can we change that verbiage to no item will be, instead of we won't put?
Oh.
Just thinking this policy is not a book. And then can you
So you're saying no, so no item will be on the displays that include graphic images in picture or drawn format, including nudity and violence.
Yes.
Correct.
So under, just a question I have. Under the criteria, do we put in there that stuff must be approved by the library director or his assistant?
I was thinking the same thing.
Yeah,
So
so,
we're in there and have that.
so my note is at the end, so if you think about policy versus procedure, the thought would be, the procedure would be that, so there's a procedure if you want to do a display. I don't know if you want to, can you take us through that, Pam?
The procedure for display?
Yeah, what happens?
Usually, we have this sign-up sheet, we have different display areas downstairs, upstairs. Staff will write in, like, so it'll be March or January, it's usually on a monthly basis. So if they want it for 1 month, they'll put the name in one. If they want it for more than one for some reason, you know, the name will go in that multiple categories. So then they usually put in there what their topic of their display is as well. And then.
Yeah, so my thought, Mike, would be that once they put that topic in before they proceed, it would be signed off by the director, and then once the display is completed, it would be signed off by the director.
And what we could do is the staff could put items in a record set that they're considering putting on the display, and then usually they could pull them, or you could look at them on the cart.
You can just
And you can
wait
see.
until.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because right now, I mean, really, they have the freedom to do what they want.
Right.
Whatever, they could put up a whole bunch of Academy Awards, they could put up the
So,
Snowman collection.
do we add-
So,
Do we add content or do we add content and location in there though too? Like where they can put that display or where it's gonna go?
They would sign up for a particular display. There's 3 or 4 or 5 different.
There's 3 or 4 downstairs if you're thinking, maybe possibly even 5. We don't sign up for. It's always children's books on this one side. And then upstairs there are 2 areas for books. I know for sure we have the 3 as you walk in. There might be the young adult one on there, but that's not consistently switched out. And then the 2 upstairs, but sometimes they if no one signs up for something, it stays longer than,
Sure.
because nobody signed up for anything, so then it kind of stays. And then,
Until it gets replaced.
yeah, like there's certain months we have, like this main display that we have, like January, February, March, April is taxes for these 2 first ones. And then June and July for these 2 first ones are summer reading program. So those are all kid displays,
Yeah,
not the taxes, but
Yeah.
the kids. So for those 6 months, they're used for other types of
Yeah.
things.
It's fine, and
Yeah.
so they're not available
Right.
at that point, so that's fine. So what I guess it's a question, Brett, but we're looking at currently we're reviewing a display policy. The other part of this is the procedure, right? So I don't know that maybe they blend together and it's one thing, or we draft a procedure.
I feel like since it's part of this, the procedure for people to question a display, I'd like to have after location of displays, the procedure for staff to
Sure.
initiate or request a display, and then if it gets approved or reviewed, what does that procedure look like?
So you wanted to just be detailed about the staff pulling.
Like everything
pulling
that Pam just
materials,
kind of
yeah.
verbally told us.
So pulling the subject, whether
Type it
it's
up.
books or
Yeah.
movies,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
putting it in, putting it somewhere, and then once they see that it's been checked off, they can go ahead and do it.
Yeah. So,
And then it gets checked off once it's completed.
so if we could add that in between these two sections on the second page. After location of displays, but before procedures for questioning.
So does that, Mike, does that answer your, oh, he's gone. I think that'll, yeah.
Jessica, did you have any revisions or thoughts you wanted to share?
I'm good with everything that's been suggested.
Okay. Anyone else at the table have other thoughts?
That was my only.
So I just need to draft this up and bring it.
So
to the
can
next
we look
month.
at a revised draft next month, please?
Okay,
Thank
I
you.
can do that.
All right, moving on. The current display and exhibits policy.
Okay, now this is from 2002, so we had talked about this actually in 2023. And really, the whole point was to, and I had to go through the city attorney, it's if anyone brings things in, like they collect Packer yearbooks, in case they were damaged or stolen, things like that, this is what that old policy is for. So actually, we could probably call this the displays and exhibits of personal collections policy, because that was the intent over 20 years ago. And if you're good with that,
Yes.
I guess I would need a motion to change the title of the policy.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second that motion. We have a motion and a second. All in favor, aye.
Okay.
Opposed?
Right?
That was a yes, right, Jess?